Hello, everyone. My name is Shwetal Desai. I'm from Nividous Software Solutions. I hope you guys are as excited to be at Catalyst as I am. Really looking forward to all the interesting presentations, and I hope you find an interesting one here. So I'm going to be talking primarily about two hot topics of the day. Of course, digital process automation platforms like Bizagi, and how do you combine that with RPA? A lot of people have been talking about how these two work together, but I believe, just like Guy said, earlier, how do you think different? How do you make something out of nothing? How do you, turn things inside out? So I believe my presentation today goes a little bit in that direction. This is something that happened while I was just sitting across where we were doing some brainstorming, and just an idea struck me and the rest of the team, and something came out of nothing. Just a little background before I jump into things. We operate through 4 offices, 2 in the US, 2 in India. We focus on digital process automation, which includes robotic process automation, business process automation. We've been in BPM for more than 20 years. So I would say we've been doing lots and lots of BPM implementations. We also do a lot of, we have a product called for test automation, which is also very interesting. Bizagi can be completely automated. Your workflows can be automated. Your test automation can be achieved. One of the main achievements I'd like to just talk about here is, I don't know, many of you all were not there in our partner introduction program yesterday, partner meet rather, where we were talking about, Bizagi was presenting, and we were talking about how, you need to start with small, quick wins, and then grow bigger, and then expand the landscape. And the whole approach to BPM is not looking at 1, 2, 3 processes. You look at 500 processes. It's a limitless field, right? You can keep building. So our approach is the same, and that has helped us, with a 100% customer retention rate. We are very proud of that, feather in our cap. We've not lost a single customer from retention, from the time we started, and of course, multiple awards in the space. I'm going to move on, and in fact, one other very important point is we're one of the few implementation partners who actually have been delivering BPM implementations without any involvement from Bizagi, because in Asia Pac is where we've done a lot of implementations. There's not a whole lot of presence there for entire implementations, and we are the partner where we are implementing the entire start to finish processes. So this is, as part of the journey, we have integrated our Nividous RPA. We have a product which has 3 pieces, 3 parts to it, 3 components. Studio, where you would build out your processes, very easy development environment. Control center, from where you deploy and monitor and schedule your bots, which is what you see on the right. I won't spend too much time on this. I just want to jump into the meat of the presentation today, which is how do you do business process improvement using RPA and DPA platform? Okay, a lot of y'all have been we've been talking for more than 2.5 years about how you can have bots, executed from BPM, from your process, first citizen bots, you drag and drop, you can trigger bots doing lots of stuff. We've been doing demos for that for many years now, but this is a little different. This turns things inside out. And why do I say that? Well, how many people have hit a problem where you are working with your business and they said, you know what, I don't want to implement this brand new spanking, system, shiny new stuff that you bought, this new software. You just upgraded me 1 year back, and I'm still suffering. It's been 1 year to just migrate. Don't come and talk to me about new stuff again. So there's this whole change management problem. So you go in and say, okay, I have this BPM, DPA, this whole DPA platform that I want you to adopt. Hey, no. I have multiple problems with that. I don't want to do change management. I don't want to reinvent the wheel again. I'm very fine with what I'm doing. I don't want to be bothered. I have, most times you don't, they'll ask you, what's my ROI, right? What am I going to get for this? And it's not that easy to put something together without really tangible information which really translates into requirements. So most of the times, you're building in a space that doesn't have a packaged application, right? So most of the requirements are fluid. Most of the business doesn't even know their own requirements, right? They're going on, a lot of this is coming to them as you go. So, of course, this leads to longer implementation times because you go through the whole scope increase cycle. And then, of course, a full-blown implementation for replacing certain systems may take too much time. And it may be too much length and breadth, cutting too many different systems. So that may not make sense. So can we do this a little differently? Can we start somewhere else? Can we start small, even smaller than maybe your smallest BPM rollout? Can we maybe do something in 2 weeks? Can we do something in 3 weeks? Perhaps there is a way. So in your typical cycle, you have model, automate, execute, and monitor, and improve your process. This is your whole end-to-end cycle. But what if you take out the automation from it? Suddenly this would sound pretty radical to you. Oh, your digital process automation platform, and you're not going to automate? Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. So when you combine RPA with your DPA platform, you are able to achieve this. You can do a full-blown monitoring process, and you can run it using a bot. Okay? If that sounds very radical, let me take you through to the next slide. So how do you leverage this? So you first start with modeling your process on a DPA platform. Okay? So you model out, that's it, not automate, okay? Just model. You're not going to build out your forms, nothing. This takes a few hours, okay? That's all you're going to do. And then you're going to drive this using a non-invasive bot, okay? So what are you doing now? There are no humans operating on this. There is a bot working your BPM. Your entire digital process automation is being executed by a bot. And what this does is immediately give you a monitored process out of nowhere, okay? Let me take this a little further, okay? Why is this so important? Why is this so radical? Because this doesn't involve any change management. You're not going to any business user and saying, hey, please adopt my system. Please do my UAT. Please give me full detailed requirements. No, you can have 3 little boxes. That's all you need. That's your requirement. 3 major milestones, and that's all you're monitoring to begin with. So the whole idea is how do you sell to your business in your organization, right? How do you get them excited to adopt a new technology? There's always going to be change resistance. So step 1 of the process, you model your process, just model. I'm not saying automate, right? And you represent your major tasks that are being executed by humans manually in external systems, such as your CRM, your order entry, your logistics systems. And all you need from your business is, just let me know what fields are changing in your system, in your external systems. All I need to know is those fields, and my bot is going to keep looking for that from time to time, and is going to detect those changes and complete tasks in BPM and move that process forward. What this means is that the end user has absolutely no knowledge. Okay, and there's a very interesting case study that I'm going to walk you through later, and it was a revelation. So the end user has no knowledge of what's happening, and they don't care. There's no change in the end user's day-to-day work. So they continue working with their interfaces as they're currently doing. There is no change management on their side. They have to do no UATs or rollout. And it doesn't have to be a perfect process. That's even better, right? That's the whole point of BPM, right? We keep telling our customers, don't build out the perfect process. You'll never get it right the first time around. That's the core underlying premise of any software technology. The first time, you'll never get it right. Your design is always going to improve. So embrace change. Don't resist change. You start with the fact that you're going to change this in a few weeks anyway. So why do you want to build your best system? So what happens now is, magically, the user has a report that came out of nowhere. So we did this for one of our case studies, and I'm going to walk you through that, and I'll tell you how radical this was. But suddenly, they have a report to work with where they had nothing before. So now they have visibility into their problems, where things are going wrong. And suddenly, you have their curiosity, right? They're very excited now to understand and learn more about what more they can do. So now you start transitioning them slowly into BPM, okay? Oh, you know what? Let me give you some more improvements by using email notifications, because you had this big gap in between. You had this problem. You were not notified from this system to this system. And the reason is because there are no emails going out. Let me build in your emails through your BPM. Let me put in your escalations. Let me involve your higher-ups and notifications, what have you. So let me start putting that in place. Oh, you know what? Now you need additional approvals? Oh, great. Don't build it in your other system, because that's not built for change management. Build it in BPM. That is built for change management, for quick and radical change. So now you got him hooked. You said, OK, now I'm really convinced this is actually giving me value. What more can I do now with this? OK, great. Now let me transition you formally into BPM world. So what can I do for you? I'll build out actual integrations to your systems now, where I had RPA tasks completing things. Let me build out actual integrations to your existing systems and make it a full-blown process. So wherever possible, it may not always be possible to have direct system integrations. And when I come to my case study, that'll be very obvious. And then wherever possible, also improve. Some of these systems that you're working with are legacy, don't have good forms, or maybe too heavy. Your forms are too heavy, doing too many things. User just needs to complete two things. Typical examples are your ERPs, very, very heavy. And many times we've been told that, hey, I just need to do this one thing, and this is so complicated. I just don't want to deal with the rest. So that's where you will build in your forms. And of course, continue automating and improving by using bots as performers of certain tasks, where you don't have APIs. And another very important use case is where you may have cloud-based systems. So it's not only that bots are used for legacy integrations. Even new age cloud-based systems require integrations, and not a lot of them will give you a custom API. How many people have run into that problem? So you don't have a customized API built specifically for you. So you need an RPA solution for that too, for those integrations. So this brings me into the actual case study. Very interesting one. This is for a high-tech manufacturing firm. And they were struggling with a problem where it was a hire-to-retire process. Trying to document the entire process end-to-end was very, very time-consuming, because even the participants of the process did not know it well enough. There were so many little holes. Finger pointing, hey, recruiter saying, I do my stuff on time. Hiring manager says, hey, I do it on time, but I never get enough response. No timely responses. And their entire, they had this SLA that from the time a requisition is put in until the time a person is hired should be about 60 days. But it was taking 90, and nobody had any clue what's going on, because there were different systems being used. They were starting with Google Sheets to put in the job requisition. Then they were using Anaplan for doing verifications of all the cost center information and other details. Then they were going into Greenhouse, creating a job requisition there, and then onto success factors after that. And all these systems did not talk to each other. And success factors and Greenhouse was in the cloud. Of course, Google Worksheets is again on the cloud. So, they had a problem where people would collect all the different. There were tasks. There were different stages of things to do, but people would just collect all their information at one time and just go in there and just update everything at once. So there's no way to really tell how much time it took from one stage to the other. So there is no monitoring, there is no visibility, and absolutely finger pointing all over the place. And with some extensive walkthroughs, also it was not possible to really figure out the real end-to-end process. So hey, we said, OK, let's just build a simple process. We don't have to build out the entire thing. Just put all the basic milestones in there which are important that we want to monitor. So we put in a 5-6 step process. And as part of that, we said, OK, we will just build this process, and a bot will now continue. A bot will start detecting what you're doing in Google Worksheet. So essentially, what the Google worksheet was doing is the bot now takes over, it detects whatever the human is doing in the Google worksheet and completes the task in a DPA. Similarly with Anaplan, with Greenhouse, and it does two of the last tasks, which is moving the stage from, there was after you create a job requisition, then the hiring manager has to approve, and then the recruiter takes over. So there is a moving of the stage from one stage to the other. So we put this process with the automation with RPA in place, and suddenly a whole new world opened up. So now you had a visualization of what's going on, and suddenly you know that I'm taking out of these, this entire thing, I'm taking about 10 to 15 days in just moving that stage, which is because of a lack of notification. I'm not getting notified when my hiring manager says, okay, I approve. My recruiter doesn't know about it for maybe until he goes and checks. So maybe a few days, maybe 10 days, 15 days. You had a big gap right there, and nobody even knew about it. So suddenly you had a visualization of your entire process and what is getting monitored in the entire audit trail. So, and all of this happened, this did not have to take too long because there's no UAT, there's no change management, nobody really has to do any checks. It can be as simple a process as possible. It doesn't even have to be the perfect process because you're just giving something additional to somebody and they're not changing the way they work. Very, very key to this entire discussion we are having. So now we said, okay, step two, now that we got them hooked, so now they're excited. Hey, you showed me some visibility. Now I can see that there's some benefits. I can see that I have this problem. What other problems do I have? Hey, my hire to retire is a huge process. Okay, let's start going into all these other little holes and let's start fixing all those problems and see what else we can optimize. So that's where we said, okay, let's see what we can do further in BPM. So first two tasks were then replaced in BPM, which is the Google worksheet. And one of the main problems was you will do verification because Google worksheet doesn't do verification of your cost center and all your other details. So it's better to do this in BPM. In the BPM, we'll do all the validations, checks and balances from all your different systems, so you don't enter wrong information up front. Right there, you're fixing your biggest problem. So we build the first, so the bot was removed, and instead we build a form in BPM to trigger the process, which is what it should be from the beginning if you're building a BPM process. And then we did the verification step. So we removed that from Anaplan, and verification now happens in BPM also. And the task to create a new requisition got much easier because now a bot can do that, right? All your data is already validated up front. You know all your information is correct. All you have to do is now take this and push this into Greenhouse. So you have an RPA bot which just does what a human does. There are like 10 different steps, including going out there and feeding all this information into LinkedIn and all our social media or recruiting media. All of these 10 steps was done by the bot. So suddenly that, all those hours that someone was spending in feeding all this information got completely reduced. So there was no other changes in the other tasks. So this was just the hybrid part where we did some minor changes just to see how much more adoption they could consume. So there was another thing, success factors. They were building, tasks in success factors, work approval tasks. We said, okay, you know what? Approvals are better done in BPM. That's where it's supposed to lie. So they had an option to build out these tasks in BPM itself. Of course, we added timeouts, escalations wherever possible. So the immediate benefits were a single form, like I said, for entering all the details, eliminated all the manual checks and balances between all the different tasks and systems, enhanced the subflows, and gradually improved the process. So you see now how we are moving from absolute lean BPM, or lean DPA rather, to a more hybrid approach, to a more full-blown BPM approach. But even in that approach, there will be certain things which you will still do through a bot. Like, for example, the creating of a job requisition is something because you don't have, a Greenhouse is on the cloud, and you don't have APIs. So you don't have custom APIs. So that was still being done by a bot. So we now moved a full transition into BPM where all the remaining tasks also got represented as native tasks in BPM, and the user spent more time in BPM rather than the other systems. Okay? So, like I said, replace RPA integrations with APIs wherever possible. So we are big proponents that RPA is not going to solve all your problems, right? RPA is there for solving some problems. Where you have API integrations and you have the budget and the time and the resources, it's better to just do an API integration. And where you don't, and you want quick wins and you want to move quickly, that's where you use RPA as much as possible. Okay? So the benefit, of course, end-to-end, full-blown process execution in BPM, zero change management. At least to begin with, there was zero change management. You transition them into it, and robust process. You leverage all the good things about both the worlds. So really, this approach focuses on using what each system is known best for, right? So the DPA systems are known for monitoring, visualizing. They're the glue of your enterprise, right? They automate everything from end to end. And as part of that, there are different systems that require to be integrated, and those don't have APIs. That's where you use a bot. So monitoring, visualizing, adding tasks, escalations, all that in BPM, and then automating all the repetitive stuff through RPA. And of course, low cost for building these, and quick turnaround time for automation. So pretty much kind of it's a very radical approach. It's turned things inside out. It's like a shadow process running in the background, just monitoring what a human is doing, and RPA bots are enabling that to happen. So it's a little different for somebody to just absorb up front. People who have been in the BPM implementations would kind of gather that a little bit, because shadow processes are well-known concept in that world. Okay, so pretty much brings me to the end of this. I'd invite questions at this time. Does anybody have any questions around this approach? Any thoughts? Any feedback? Yes?
I'm just trying to make sure I understand from the start here.
Sure.
When you initially started, you're using RPA as the bridge between the existing systems. So you're just trying to take out sort of, I guess, the mystery. I'm trying to clearly understand what you were doing for them with RPA without the BPM system.
Sure. So yeah, this is a little tricky concept to understand. So thank you for asking that. I'm going to go a little deeper and explain it with a little example. Okay. So sure. So the question was, I wasn't really sure. I know you're trying to use RPA as a bridge, but how were you really doing this? What was RPA doing with those systems, and how did you connect these systems, and particularly how you were connecting BPM and the systems through RPA? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, if I'm a user, I'm using my CRM system, and I have certain updates I'm making in the system. If I know what those updates are, so I'm updating maybe a couple of fields. If I know those, I can schedule my bot to regularly log into that system and check for that change. Has that change happened or not? Has somebody made that change into that system? That change is an event. That event represents a task in BPM. Is that clear? So your first task is enter a new job requisition. So Google Worksheet is where somebody enters a new job requisition. So an RPA bot is continuously polling and checking that Google Worksheet, what is the last timestamp of update? Has there been a new update over here? Oh, yes, there has been an update. Take some of that information, trigger a new task, a new process in BPM to monitor this new job requisition from end to end. Now, Let me check for the next task. Oh, there is a check that I have to do in Anaplan. Has that been done by the human yet? Let me log into Anaplan. The bot is going to do this now. So think of somebody watching over your shoulder without your knowledge, just looking into what you're doing and observing all your patterns. It knows what to look for. It knows what changes you're making in the systems, and it detects those and completes tasks in a shadow process in the background. So suddenly, you have a full automated process. Yes, Ozzy.
I was going to add, because I think I have some knowledge of what you're
Absolutely.
speaking about. So
You probably have more knowledge than me.
I know, but so what we had was, because I'm his client, so what we had was different systems, and you couldn't really have visibility into the life cycle of when a hiring manager said, I need a position. If I have the budget for it, it's easy. You just go ahead and create the profile in Greenhouse, start recruiting. But if you don't, there's some off the system, outside the system requests that have to take place. And then from the time that that happens, it's approved and it just sits there. And I think it was, the longest was, I think like 3 months. The shortest was like 18 days, something like that.
Wow.
From the time it was approved to the time it was actually listed into the system to start recruiting. So what this can do is it basically says once it's approved here, it looks for it, and then it creates the job automatically the same day, a couple of minutes. So now you know what the wait time is in each queue, so you can kind of diagnose where your issues are. All right, so if it takes from the time it's inputted into the system to the time it's actually they're hired, takes 3 months, you can diagnose and figure out what happened there. So rather than going into like 5 different systems to tell the story, times 1,600 people. So.
Great. Thank you, Ozzy. Any other questions? Yes.
I wanted to ask from it. Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, what advice would you have for the crowd, for the folks looking to use RPA? What could they do as far as assessing their readiness? Because I think that we weren't particularly. So I'm with Magic Leap, which is a tech company, but which is different than your IT side of the house. So, what would you say are the key requirements to say you're mature enough to even start looking at RPA to implement from a system standpoint or from a maturity standpoint?
Sure. So that's a very interesting question. So one of the most important things is a lot of times internally there is no knowledge of RPA. RPA is a new concept for most people. Your business doesn't know how it can be used. Educating them will take a little time. So what we do is usually we say the quick win is look for your Excel sheets. So of course that is to identify the areas that you can start looking at. So Excel sheets exist because you don't have integrations and you don't have systems talking to each other. So your Excel sheets form the easiest low-hanging fruits to start with. And usually you take information, you process it, and then update it somewhere else. So I would start looking in those places. In terms of, again, how do you build your program? How do you start? How do you grow into a program? Just like your DPA programs, you start with small, quick wins and you grow bigger. I would say RPA is no different because again, it's the same digital process automation space. You look for the small, quick wins, something that you can do quickly, showcase to the user. When they start seeing things, just like in BPM, when you put something in the hands of an end user, he really starts visualizing a lot more that can be done. Because otherwise it's all in the mind. Oh, I think it can do X, Y, Z other things. But really, when you start playing with it, oh, you know what? I thought I wanted that, but that's not really what I wanted. This can do a lot more than that. So translating what you're doing in the real world into a digital world is a completely different kind of transition. And it's not something that you can just have a business person articulate, or even an IT articulate easily to business. So doing small, quick wins makes a lot of sense, and that allows you to slowly grow your program. And of course, even though these are very agile and very quick, I do recommend at least spending a little time building a little small requirement deck to at least understand what you're trying to achieve. Because RPA is a little more unique. There's unique in the sense every RPA implementation is not going to mirror the other one that you had. It's not I mean, there are different systems each time that you're dealing with, and different types of exception handling, different types of manipulation of information. It's not one size fits all. Even if you've done the same kind of solution in more than 5 different clients, it's going to be different. It's going to be different because you may end up with different systems. Okay, so spending a little time when you're implementing these on the kind of ecosystem that you're working with. Sometimes you're working in an area which you cannot send emails, you cannot, very restricted environments because they deal with, very important software. They may be going outside to collect information. So there's a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to be running out of time soon. I don't want to go over, but essentially, I would start with at least these 3 in place and build from there into a larger program. Okay. Thank you very much. If there are any more questions, please do visit us. Thank you. We do have demos, live demos for RPA. We have test automation, blockchain, and some cognitive, widgets that we have built out. I'm sure you'll find it interesting. Thank you very much.